All right. Boy, it's bright up here. Just so you know, my wife made me wear my flip-flops. I usually go around barefoot. And I know people have commented about that about me, but that's okay. But I listen to my wife. And the only other woman I listen to is in the dash of my car. It says, turn right here. I don't even listen to her, right? So it is great to be here. I don't know all of you. I can't even see my faces, so that's actually good. So did Steve stay? Probably. He said he might leave. I said, good, it'll be a shorter sermon. No, there he is, okay. So actually, Paul said that. So if you don't know me, my wife and I went to this church for a long time. Neither one of us are from Sarasota, but this is still our residence. And we are missionaries. And I'm going to start off telling you some stuff about our ministry, a little bit about us in general, and then get into some specifics about why we're here and what we're doing while we're here. This is our home church. I want to say this it was called Agape Christian Fellowship when I first started going here. And I got some stand-up guys that are with me tonight. Go ahead, don't be embarrassed. We got some guys from Hawaii, Pennsylvania, North Carolina here helping me. So I gave them a tour, and I was trying to explain to them, like going around, you're showing people stuff. You're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe some of the things at this place. And we used to be rats running across here, and we'd be sitting in there. I don't know if anybody else remembers those days. I do. So, but anyways, so Disaster Relief. We started 18 years ago with Hurricane Charlie, and we were looking for the Tuttles, and they were some youth workers, and they lived in Arcadia, and we couldn't hear from them. So me and Jim and my son Nick, and we'll see. I don't know if you can see Toothpick Nick. He had the afro going, and he's still a toothpick, but he doesn't have the afro anymore. He actually is the pastor of a Calvary Chapel in Savannah, Georgia, so very proud of my son. But we set out, and we were looking for the Tuttles. We did not find the Tuttles, but we did find their house, and we didn't know it was their house till a few days later. So that was like our foray into disaster relief, and then now we're back full circle to Ian. And if you probably paid attention, but Charlie was like this little speck of a hurricane, and then Ian was this ginormous thing that took up the whole state of Florida at the same time. And they followed the same path pretty much from the time it made landfall to Orlando, and then the paths crisscrossed. So it's kind of like we're back here now, and it's. When we started out, we were still living here. We were both still working. And matter of fact, Mary Jo and I weren't even married at the time. We weren't living together or anything. We just were. I was courting my current wife, and my last wife, and the only wife. Okay. So, but anyway, make sure I be specific there. But so we just going out helping people different times. We did some stuff in Florida at first, but since we've packed up in 2012, we went to Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy, for 2 weeks. For those of you who've been around long enough, you know we used to do this big Thanksgiving outreach with a mission up in New York City every Thanksgiving. We did it for 5 years in a row. We were about 7 years total. We were up there doing a lot of ministry. And we went from doing about 6,500 full home-cooked meals in 4 days to our last one was Hurricane Sandy week, and we did 15,000 meals out for that because of the hurricane, of course. But we take a small-term mission team here. We take 20 people up there, and God really did some miraculous things while we were up there. But so we went up there for 2 weeks because the Thanksgiving thing was coming. So we're going to go for 2 weeks and help some people out, and then we're going to transfer to Thanksgiving. We're going to come back. Well, we came back 4 months later, and I did do the Thanksgiving. My wife and Brian, you guys all know Brian, they stayed out on Staten Island doing disaster relief and running the teams, and I went back to Manhattan, ran the Thanksgiving outreach, and then we all met back in the city on Friday, and then we went back out in the field and spent 4 months there in New York in the winter on the water. And that was not fun. But my wife always says, who takes their wife to New York City in the winter, right? But and so that forayed into what we do now, little by little by little. We never set out to do full time. I mean, I know we discuss it at some times. We're just like, well, that'll never happen. How would it ever happen? And all these different things. And so now that's been over 18 years. And so we came back in 2013. I closed my little business down. Mary Jo, she used to be a school teacher here and then at Providence. And she'd already quit teaching school. I love my wife. I love ministry. And I most importantly love doing ministry alongside of my wife. There's nothing better than that in my book. And I know we fight and argue a lot, and we don't always agree on things, but that is the most important, that we're together doing ministry, and I love that part of it. So Ian made landfall on September 28th. We rolled into town 2 days later. We were already in contact with Jim and several other churches in the area and a few other people, and we were already packing up from Kentucky to head back here. We got here Friday night. We unloaded our stuff. Some folks here helped me unload stuff into a container back here that we need to get out of our tool trailer. And I started out Saturday morning with a few people from here, and we went down, and we in Calvary Chapel Venice lost a whole bunch of shingles on their roof. They got a little bit of water in, so the first thing we did was spent the day tarping that roof. And then we got busy helping others. And so since we've been here, I've talked to over 60 homeowners, and I've assessed all but 9 of those 60 homes, and they're still waiting for me to come by. The requests have slowed down a little, but it's kind of funny because it's not necessarily the same 9, because I got 9 requests just this week alone to still go out and come look at my house, come see some guy walked up. The guys will say, this guy walked up where we were and said, somebody I know needs some help. Can you come help? So I took down their information and all that stuff this morning. And of those 60, we've completed 25 jobs already. And we're not a big ministry. It's just my wife and I, and we like it that way. We have a personal touch with the homeowners, with the volunteers. I'll get a little bit more of that. Our willing servants that come alongside us from as far away as Hawaii this time, right? And in those 25 homes, we didn't do. It's not like we rebuilt 25 homes, but we did something in regards to disaster relief on 25 homes. And so far, we haven't raked any yards. We haven't picked up sticks and stuff like that. So it's been stuff that other people could not do, right? We currently have 12 homes that we've started something on, but we still have to go back and finish things. Like, for instance, there's several homes that have been gutted from flooding. And when we get everything tarped and we get all the water out and the siding fixed so no more water's coming in the house, we get them all the sheetrock off and everything else so it's drying, and then we'll spray the ones that need sprayed, and then we'll move into the rebuild phase. So I'm not just working on one house all the way to completion. If I only had one house, that's what I'd do, but obviously I have a lot more to that, and I'm sure there will be more coming in. And we're not really going too far from where we're at. And we've got 16 homes that are waiting to be, I've already seen them, we've already talked to people, I already know what we need to do, and they're just waiting on us to come down and help them. We've tarped and patched roofs. We've done some siding repair to stop water intrusion. We've cut and cleared trees and vegetation. We're working in some trailer parks and some trailers, so we've removed tons of metal from off of homes and properties. We began water, flood, and mold remediation, and that includes removing the ceilings, walls, and floors, and everything in between, and several other things as well. I'm very knowledgeable with insurance companies and how they work. I got a request today for some guy. He wants me to help a lady figure out her insurance thing, so I know how to do that. I don't necessarily agree. I don't agree at all with what insurance companies do, but I know how to work to get you the money you deserve and that you paid for. If you want something extra, that's between you and them. And I also understand what little bit you can understand about FEMA. I'm not an advocate of the government giving people money, but if they're going to get it, I can help you. If they're going to give it, I can help you find it, but then they change the rules every 6 months, so it's hard to keep up with. I've already been discussing with homeowners now remodeling 5 or 6 homes. And then some of them I'd like to put on that list, but I haven't said anything to them yet. And then there's still others, like I said, we hadn't even gotten to yet, so I don't even know what that will look like and how that happens as far as down the road what's going to happen. We've mostly been serving at Bay Indies, which is a trailer park. They say it's a 55 plus. I haven't seen anybody in there under like 70 except for us. And so that's pretty much what it is. And so they're 50-plus-year-old places. They could not get insurance if they wanted to, and just a lot of things that happened that have caused a lot of damage, and they just don't have the wherewithal to fix it themselves. They don't have the money because they could not buy insurance. And even if they did, like one guy had insurance that was $30,000. His trailer was condemned. What's he going to do with $30,000? The answer is nothing. He's going to walk away with $30,000 in his pocket to help him live for the rest of his life off of that. He cannot even go forward in this area, and I'll talk about him a little while later, with $30,000. What are you going to do, right? That trailer park is also like right near Calvary Venice, which is what we now call Camp Calvary, but it is still Calvary Venice. They're both there existing together at the same time. I've also looked at a few homes in Bradenton, Sarasota, South Venice, and Northport. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about setting up the camp and that stuff. If you didn't know, we have 6 vehicles, 3 trailers, 2 trucks, and a 15-passenger van. And again, it's just me and Mary Jo, so moving is quite a hassle. And then I lost the engine to one of my trucks when we were in Louisiana. It took 5 months to get it replaced, among some other things that had to be done to it as well. But I'm here. My trailer's in Kentucky, and my truck's in Louisiana. So some guys from Arkansas, and matter of fact, the pastor is speaking at my daughter's church in South Carolina right now. On Sunday, he'll be at Nick's church. But they drove from Arkansas to Louisiana, and then the guy who had the truck to bring them came here. Then the other guy took off and went to Kentucky. And then if you know Eric Jackson, who goes to church here, Eric Jackson and I traded trucks. And then he took my red truck, and he went up and met Mary Jo, who was already up there with her van and loading everything up, and then they came back down. And then once they got there, we don't live in trailer parks. We live in parking lots and yards of churches and things like that. There's no water, there's no sewer, there's no electric. So I have to figure all that out. I had some great help this time. David's been here for a while helping me, and a couple other volunteers that came in right away to help us get that set up. So that was really cool. And I think I'm pretty much done. I think it was Monday or something, we finished what I think is the last thing to do. But then we had to turn Calvary Chapel Venice into Camp Calvary because we have volunteers coming from out of town, right? So we had to run a bunch of new electrical circuits. We had to add a stove and a refrigerator to our new kitchen. We installed a new water heater and set up a shower out on the porch, and mostly they have a little shed out back that's turned. It's got tarps in it and wood for tarping things. It's got wheelbarrows and things like that we're using right now every day as we go out and do that. We've had a lot of local people come out. We've probably had a total of about 50 locals that have come out and helped us. But unfortunately, this past Saturday we had 2, and I called them up and asked them to come because I didn't know if anybody was going to show up, and I promised this lady I'd have her roof tarp by the end of the week. It was only 3 of us, and it takes 5 people to tarp a roof adequately. We've had folks from Pennsylvania and what I call Southern Alabama, that's the Florida Panhandle, Arkansas, small U-Turn for Christ group from Crystal River, North Carolina, Michigan, and now Hawaii. We got 5 volunteers for this next week and a half, and that's the Hawaiian guys. And actually, one of them is now living up in Michigan. He was a student up there, and he's just trying to figure some things out. But technically, he's from Hawaii. And then we've got 6 to 10 the following week. And then Thanksgiving week, we're hoping to have some locals come and help us out that are talking about a family coming out and helping. And besides that, we don't have anybody from out of town. And then between the next 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, we're back to some more groups coming in. We shut down for 2 weeks for Christmas break, and then we hit it up again in January. And I've got 2 people committed at the end of January. I've got a spring break group coming in from the state of Washington, Calvary Chapel Lake Stevens. They've served with us many times. I really love serving with them. And then I got another group from Calvary Chapel Murfreesboro in Tennessee that wants to come in June. It'll be another youth group. We'll be here for a while if you can't figure that out. And I'll commit to what I know that I can get done, but the more people I have, obviously, the more that I can commit to. It appears as if we are turning into Calvary Relief's mobile home repair outfit for widows and elderly couples. And I swore I would never work on a trailer. And most of the stuff we do is a rising water flood, and that didn't happen there. So it kind of opened my eyes up that, hey, I was reluctant to go there. And I was like, well, I think we can help this person, and we can help us. And if it's condemned, and they don't, and they don't have like $100,000 to throw in a trailer that's worth about 20, then it's going to get condemned. I can't help that. But there are a lot of people in there that we've already helped and that we really think we can help. And some of the folks that we're helping, I'm going to tell you some of the things that happened to them. And some of it was shortly before the storm, and a couple things happened since the storm. One husband showed up after the damage was done. He had a heart attack standing there and looking at his house that was destroyed. One widow just had a stroke earlier this year. The worst one we've seen so far with Mode is a recent widow. She has no insurance. Most of these people don't. Another recent widow had a rising water flood and no insurance. A younger family had a rising water flood because the lift stations failed that the county owns, but the county's not responsible that the lift stations failed. So now they're responsible. They didn't live in a flood zone. Their house got flooded, and so they had to work that. And then 2 weeks after the storm, her dad died. And her mom doesn't have the capacity, I don't know the family very well, doesn't have the capacity to handle all the arrangements. So she had to stop working with me to get her house done. And then she has to take care of all that and bury her dad. She's got some little kids, and now she has to jump back into disaster relief, and they're living in a little trailer in their driveway. And I didn't understand it yet, but it looks as if they're going to lose that trailer. So, they don't have money to go out and rent a house because they don't have the house. One man lived in his home for almost 25 years. The wife of his youth started getting dementia a few years back, and he took care of her as long as he could. A couple weeks before the storm hit, he put her into a long-term care facility, and she no longer recognizes him, which is very sad. She's actually missed Cincinnati at one time, he told me. And the home was condemned. And he's not even supposed to be living in there, but he's got nowhere else to go. And so it was really hard to tarp his roof. We had to actually go back a second time to make it better because there's no roof. It's just a bunch of trusses. And he lost his roof. He lost walls. He lost floor. We went over the other day and jacked up his island because it was slowly sinking down through the floors and all that. And he's showing me pictures. His whole life is inside this trailer. And a lot of it did get ruined. He's able to save some of it. And he's got a place that he can now rent. He's the guy that had $30,000 of insurance, and he got a place that he can rent, and he would live off that $30,000. He's not leaving his wife. His kids and grandkids are like, come back to Ohio, live with us. And, and to an extent, I can see what they want to take care of their dad, but he's not going to leave his wife. And so we went ahead and tarped his roof so he can stay there. It's probably been about 3 weeks now. He was hoping by the end of this week to get them to get the apartment done so we can get the key and then just slowly start moving in over there. And then this morning, as I said, I keep getting more people wanting to help us out, right? I got this email. I lost my husband a year and a half ago from a 6-year battle with dementia. As we spent the last 2 winters of his life in Bay Indies, the porch with his recliner were a safe haven where he could see the outside and people walking by and playing tennis. It has been difficult to lose my husband. And as I walked up to our front door and saw that half the roof was missing, I really didn't know what I was going to do. However, I prayed to God, and then a neighbor suggested to contact your organization. God has been guiding me for years, especially since my husband's passing. So I know that things will all work out as we put our faith in the Lord. And that was an encouragement to me. And I could go on and on. That's just a very small glimpse of what's going on. We've had opportunities to pray with people, to encourage them. We've invited some to church. Some of them started showing up already, which is really awesome. I hope that they come back, and we don't want to steal sheep from another church. But if they want to come on over, that's fine with us as well. A lot of the neighbors, like the other day, we're driving out, and all these. It's Halloween for all these. I don't want to say old people, but they're old people, older than me, and they're like Carl's age, and they're all there. They're in their costumes. They're waving at us as they were driving by, and they're thanking us. We didn't even help the people that are out there waving us, And we're a lot different than other groups, big or small or indifferent. Our focus is not on rebuilding homes and mucking out homes and cutting trees. Our focus is on discipleship. So as the guys will testify, every morning we get up for an hour and a half, breakfast, coffee, and devotions, and we do a little Bible study. We're going through the book of Philippians, which is where I kind of got my teaching from that I'm trying to move over to. And but if all we're doing is rebuilding houses, then I'm going home. I mean, I could make a lot of money doing what I'm doing, and I don't care about the money. I care about the discipleship. So that's one of the prerequisites. If you want to come serve with us, they all knew that coming here. They knew exactly what was going to happen, and I make them read these 7 pages of stuff and agree to it, and so they know what they're getting into. And by doing this, that's unity. That's some unity that we can have in the Lord first. And then as a group, you guys know, a lot of you might know Nick Summer. He used to be the principal of school here, and he's bringing a group down in a couple weeks. And he sent, once I get them signed up and all the gist, then they go over to Mary Jo, and she deals with them because she takes care of the camp. And he gave a really good testimony of what he's doing with his team before they get here already. And Nick has traveled with me before, so he knows how it is to go on a mission trip and what we do and how we do things. And he's lining things up for what he knows is going to happen. And we follow one simple scripture for that. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. At the end of our time, even like what I just kind of read through, the things that we've done, I mean, we didn't really even start working out in the field till like a week after the storm, because I was out talking to people, trying to figure out what we were going to do. I think our first actual day in the field was not the first Saturday after the storm, but the second Saturday after the storm. So at that point, I think we're not even at 4 weeks yet, but I'm old and I can't remember everything. So, but if you know stuff about us, and a lot of you guys do know me, and you can joke with me. I don't care about who I am and what I'm like. But the one thing you probably all agree with is like, wow, that guy, her, maybe her, but not me, right? Disaster relief. And so, we just want to make ourselves available to the Lord, and we oftentimes say we're the poster children so that God can use anyone, and we prove that over and over again to the people that come out, because we've never had someone leave who really had a heart to serve the Lord that walked away and said this is a waste of time. We've had some people that don't have a heart to serve the Lord, and they walk away very whatever. They're not happy with me, and that's okay. They didn't want to serve the Lord. They didn't want to grow in the Lord, and then they never want to come back. I had one guy walked out, and he says, I'll never come back again. I go, you got that right. And so, because he ain't coming back, right? And so, at least not unless I know he's had a change of heart. So, if you know me and Mary Jo and you follow us on Facebook, I do Facebook devotions and blog devotions. You know that Mary Jo and I are simply just about getting into God's Word, studying biblical principles, and then applying them to our flawed lives as best we can. And when we fail, which we do a lot, and Mary Jo will tell you all about me, we get right back up and start over. We used to be involved in the discipleship ministry here in the what's the name of that? Self-confrontation thing. We used to be part of it. We used to teach it. We used to do biblical counseling discipleship here when we lived here. And we've just taken that and taken it out of the field with us. Twice we've been able to do the smaller course of that in 2 different churches that we were at for a long time, which was really awesome. And I stole this saying here from a Facebook friend today. He said, I've come to believe that maturity in Christ is less about how often I sin, but more about how quickly I repent and how firmly I believe I'm forgiven. And I said, amen. And I said, that's what happens for those who consistently pursue the Lord as they become more like Christ, right? We're always going to sin, right? Anybody who says they don't sin, John says, is a liar, right? And so I don't want to be a liar, although I do lie sometimes, and I try not to, but I am who I am. And so let's get our Bibles. We're going to turn to Philippians 1:27-30. The Apostle Paul wrote the book of Philippians. When I first got saved, and I got saved and I found this church like within 2 or 3 months, and I've never been more happy about it. I know I used to get called into the principal's office. I called it every once in a while. I'd get a phone call, and Carl wants to see you. Okay, what am I being seen for this time, And I wasn't going to volunteer any information to him because I'd probably guess the wrong thing, and then I'd have 2 things to repent of. But so, been around here for a while, and as a Christian, and I used to think that Paul was this guy that lived hundreds of years. I mean, I didn't really put it into a number, but in my mind, I'm just thinking, man, how long was this guy a Christian? So finally, it was only a few years ago I decided to look this up. Do you know that Paul was only a Christian for a little over 30 years-ish? No one knows for sure. And I'm thinking, wow. Now, and then how long was it before he got the road to Damascus till he went out and all the persecution started happening? 12-ish years till he was out getting prepared, and then he goes out. So all that stuff that happened to him was like 18, 20 years. And I'm thinking, wow, I complain about fill in the blank, whatever you complain about. We got nothing to complain about when we look and see Paul's life. And in Philippians, it was written by Paul, and it wasn't his last imprisonment, it was his next to last imprisonment, right? So within about 5 years after he wrote this book, he ended up in his final imprisonment, and then he ended up dying for his faith there. And of course, there were many letters that Paul wrote. I don't know how anybody could ever figure out how many of them, but we do know some of them, but I'm sure there were more that we don't even have an inkling about. But there was a reason why God kept what he kept in the Bible, and it wasn't so we'd have a history lesson of all the things he yelled at the Philippians for, or the Corinthians for, and what he told them to do. No, God kept it so that we would know what we need to do with our lives while we're here on this earth. All right, and so let's read through this quick. Only conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, that whether I come and see you or remain absent, I will hear of you that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. So let's stop there for a second. So only conduct yourselves. So here's Paul, all right? God told Paul what to write, so we know this is really God's words, right? 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 tells us that. And so to conduct ourselves. In other words, he's saying, this is how you are to live your lives if you're a Christian. Now, I believe that anybody can pick up the Bible and read it. Some people pick it up to learn it, to argue with people like me that want to try to convince me that I'm wrong, and I'm not going to talk to them. And some people do that well and do some different. I remember Carl used to do the thing at the college where he'd get in the debates and stuff, and he's really good at doing that. That's not my gift. When I argue, it's not about that. So it's other stupid stuff that I argue about, especially with Mary Jo. And so, but anyway, so how to live our lives. And the Bible, I believe the Bible is written for Christians. I like the acronym Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth. Okay, and it's basic. I don't think living the Christian life is hard to figure out because we got the Bible. You know, maybe 200 years ago or 300 years ago or 500 years ago, it might have been a little bit harder, but honestly, we have no excuse today. I have a phone and a tablet sitting right over there, and I've probably got access to about 50 different Bible versions at the push of a button. And most of us have at least that. I did meet a guy that's a children's pastor up at South Alabama, a church up there, and he still has a flip phone. That's what he wants, but his wife has a smartphone. I said, well, you could use hers, you know. And so, so to conduct ourselves in a manner, how we're going to walk while we're on this earth as a believer, okay? I don't expect non-believers to do anything but sin. I'm not shocked when I see our government, our nation, our world, when I see them running amok and doing all this crazy stuff. I'm way past being shocked with all that stuff. Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. Just about everything you can see today, you can go back to the book of Genesis and see the same thing. I mean, in Genesis, the account of Noah, that was it, man. Everybody else was wicked, and he wiped the world. Mary Jo tried doing the other day. We're trying to do a population thing, and you figured out what, that the population in those days was almost what it is today, about the same. That many people on the world were wicked. We don't have that today, right? But the ones that are, I expect them to sin. But Christians, that's another story for me. I want to know, like, and it took me a long time to get it. Again, I was in the principal's office many times. And so, but Carl was patient with me, you know, as well as there were other leaders in the church who took me into I remember hanging out with Lou Busby. I was telling somebody about him today. We'd be out here doing little projects around the church. And I can't remember one single thing that guy said to me, but I enjoyed being around him. And you know, again, that was a while ago. But we would just be talking about things of the Lord here and there, little things. Carl Davidson, you know, that guy tried running me over after a stroke one day, and I didn't know if he was like doing it on purpose, because he shouldn't have been driving, or if he was messing with me. And I asked him, and he just kind of grinned. So but I just spent a lot of time with godly people. I mean, again, the Lord bringing me to this church was we started the Bible college classes on biblical counseling back in the old tape room, and we watched VCR tapes every Saturday morning. And Kristen Tasselson, Sarah Cadwell. I don't know if there's any besides the three of us. There might have been one or two, but and Tom and Glory Panhorse kind of ran that thing, I think, back in that day. And but anyway, so we're to conduct ourselves, we're to live our lives in a manner that's worthy of the gospel of Christ. What does that mean? To live a life worthy of the gospel of Christ. So what can anybody repay what Christ has done for you? Raise your hand. Wow, no hand went up, right? And so which is a good thing, because we all know where we stand with the Lord. But so how can I pay him back? Well, I can't give him something to compensate for that. But there's things that we can do as we live our lives on this earth, that as we're walking out our lives every single day for the gospel of Christ. So for what Christ did for us by dying on the cross for our sins, right? And then Paul says, so that whether I come and see you or remain absent. And when I'm reading through passages like this, I always say, I wonder if Paul can see us today. I mean, I don't know that he can or can't, you know. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. I don't know that maybe there's something in the Bible that I've missed and that specifically says you can. I know they can't come back here. But I like to kind of think, well, you know, Paul's sitting up there in heaven, and even if he can't, if I was faithful and somehow something I did was that pebble in a shoe. I remember Greg Kokel here years ago said the pebble in the shoe thing. And I get that pebble in a shoe for somebody, and 5 years later they become a believer, and then 6 months after that they die and go to heaven, and I can just see them, running up to Paul, and Paul saying, "So, what's your story?" And then it comes down to this guy named Curt was at Calvary Chapel, Sarasota, and he did this discipleship class, and he put this pebble in my shoe, and then I went off amok for 5 years, and then I remembered that one day, and I got saved. So Paul knows. I think somehow Paul knows that when we're doing the thing. And of course here, he didn't know if he's ever going to get back to that church or not. And he goes, "No, regardless, though, I will hear of you that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel." Unity. I talked about that, what we do with our group. Our group came in yesterday afternoon, and so we took them around and showed them a few things they're going to be working on today, and then we had what we call an orientation, team orientation, and I probably mentioned the word unity 20 times in a couple hours, right? Because it's so important for us, and if we're all in unity with Christ, then everything else is just going to fall in line. I don't have to worry about the little things. Yeah, it's community living. We're gonna rub each other the wrong way. I told them, look, you're nobody special. I'm an equal opportunity offender. I don't mean to be. It comes out, but I'm not really trying to offend you. I'm just focused on this, and probably one of us took it the wrong way, and we kiss and make up, and then everything's good. But just to remember that the big picture, the goal of making Jesus known, of conducting myself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, is the most important thing. And then he goes on in 28, in no way alarmed by your opponents. Okay, there's people that are going to oppose us because of our stance with the gospel. And again, it doesn't surprise me when the world does that. Mary Jo was adopted, and we know her biological family, and he all but disowned us because of what we do. He doesn't want to know anything about Jesus. He told us that. And then when we started doing this stuff, he just has little to do with that. I get that, because he's not a believer. But what I don't get is when I see people, wanting to serve the Lord, and, their parents or their grandparents or, spouses I could not do what I do without Mary Jo being on board with that. And if you want to ask her about how she knew she was supposed to be in disaster relief, she'll be happy to share that story with you. And so, but when I feel a call on my life, and it's like, oh no, what about you're going to take my grandkids from me, or who's going to take care of me? And the Lord is way bigger than all that, is all I know. And even if I still lived here in Sarasota, my kids and grandkids live somewhere else, so I wouldn't be near them either way anyways, right? And that's okay with me, because I understand that the Lord has got them whether I'm there or not. And I would rather live my life as a biblical example, whether it's in front of them, when I am in front of them, but also that because they know what I do, they know what we're all about. And my son's talking about coming out and helping us with his family. And they came out one time years ago when we were in Colorado. Everybody wanted to go to Colorado. And our parents have been out and things of that nature. They get to see what we do and how we do it, and that we really are all about the Lord. And I encourage you, there's a lot of friends that we have that's never been out, and that's okay. Everybody serves in their own way. But now we're just down the road, and come see what it is that we do every day. We're here. This is our home. But we've gone and visited Mary Jo's mom a few times, and she's a recent widow, and Mary Jo has spent more time with her than I have. But other than that, we've only hung out with a couple people because we're busy working. We're that close, but we're that far away. So if you want to hang out with us, come down to Venice. We'll hang out with you. And if we know you're coming, maybe we won't work all day, and Mary Jo will get part of the day off, and you guys can just hang out, right? And so, but so that's what alarms me. I know Paul says don't be alarmed by it, but I don't know that it alarms me, because I guess in today's world I expect it. But that shouldn't be coming from the body of Christ. Let them go. And maybe, like I remember before Mary Jo and I got married, we were working on this thing. We were going to get married and move to Honduras, and we were going to set up a mission training camp. And you guys might remember that. And then through Carl Davidson, boom, the door closed. And I was like, cool, okay, it's done. Everybody looked like, well, that was a big waste of time for 6 months. And no, we learned so much. Figuring things out and walking down that path, that path didn't happen, but I'm convinced if I didn't walk that path, there'd have been another one that got me to the path that I'm on now, because God was working things out in our lives to prepare us for what we're doing today. All right. Okay, and he says it's a sign of destruction for them, but a salvation for you, and that too from God. So sometimes when some people are trying to be against us, our opponents, sometimes to me that says I must be on the right path. Because if I'm standing over here doing what I think is the right thing, and I got no opposition, and life is always great, not that it can't be great from time to time as a Christian, but in my mind I'm thinking, okay, there's either something big around the corner that's going to almost wipe me out spiritually, and I better get prayed up for it, which is what we should be doing those rest periods, right? Or I'm just not having the relationship with the Lord that he wants me to have. I don't know which it is, but in my mind, that's what it seems to be like for me, right? So verse 29, and this comes up to it some more. For you it has been granted for Christ's sake, not only to believe in him, this is nobody's life verse, but also to suffer for his sake. All right? And so wow, so it's been granted, okay, it's been gifted, it's been given to us, however you want to look at that, because of Christ, right? That I get to believe in him, right? Because what he did on the cross. But he's also given me the gift to suffer for his sake. And now I know that in America, we're not really going to suffer like some of us know some missionaries in foreign lands that where they're living and what they're doing is very dangerous. There's one guy that because of this really cool app now I can talk to him on the phone and it's encrypted and all this stuff happens. And except for the few times I've seen him in the States, I've never been able to have a phone conversation with him. And last fall I was able to talk to him for about an hour on the phone. And he's where he is supposed to be. And he knew about it and he was comfortable with talking about it as well. But most of the rest of our communication is through coded emails, you know, and because he's afraid. He's not afraid for his life. He wouldn't stop doing what he was doing if he was, but he wants to be cautious. He's got a wife, he's got a boy, and all these things are going on. And you know, he could die at any moment. And there's a lot of Christians in the world that are like that. I don't think we have to worry about that. But the little sufferings can come is that, you know, somebody might make fun of me, or maybe my parents, like Mary Jo's biological dad, has basically disowned us because of our stance with the Lord. And that's not easy. I mean, it's not easy. It's easier for me than it is for Mary Jo with her dad. But there's all these different things that are different. But the fact is that Paul said, that, which is what God said, that we are going to suffer for different things. Not because we did the wrong thing, for his sake, because we did the right thing, right? And then in verse 30, he says, experience the same conflict which you saw in me and now here to be in me. And so when I'm reading that, I'm just reading this little passage, I'm like, oh, I wonder what the conflict was, you know? Well, that's why we're good Bereans and we go to Calvary chapels and we're taught to study the word in the context, right? So if you back up in chapter 1, what was Paul's conflict that was going on in his life? It was his desire to be in heaven. Paul wanted to be in heaven right then and there. And it was better for him, he said, to be in heaven. But Paul understood why we're here on this earth. And the reason we're on this earth is to glorify and praise the Lord and be him to other people, to draw other people to him. And he said, but it's better for you that I remain here on this earth. And I believe that's what the conflict that Paul was talking about. And he's like, okay, you're also going to experience that same conflict, which you saw in me, and now here to be in me. He just voiced it to them. He wrote the letter. He said, here's a conflict I have. You know, and Paul is making the right choice. And I would try to get us to think about that and say, do we make that same right choice? Are we more interested in gold, silver, and precious stones, or wood, hay, and stubble? And the things that are going to burn up and go away. It's all our choice every moment of every day. And you don't have to be full. Honestly, we're all in full-time ministry. Did y'all know that? All right? There's no part-time Christians. There's no part-time ministry. You know, we're all called to do something somewhere for the Lord. And that changes, right? Like my kids are growing up. Okay, and I don't live near my grandkids, but we get to see them every once in a while, which is awesome. And our youngest just turned 1 year old yesterday. And I keep asking my daughter when she's going to give me some, but she just glares at me. But Nick has 4. And so, so I'm no longer the father that I was to my children. That station in life has changed. You know, me and my son have some good conversations about different things. He'll ask me some questions about some different stuff that he's going through and shares things with me. Mostly it's about construction stuff on his house. But still, we have some conversations like that. But it's different now. Just like him as a son, his responsibilities as a son is different. So our stations in life change. You gotta look at, Carl Davidson. If you didn't know him, I feel sorry for you because he was a hero of the faith to me. The other guy, I can't think of his name, Lou Busby. He was a hero of the faith all the way to the end. Those guys pressed on. What was it, maybe 15 years or so that he had the stroke, and he was an elder here the whole time. And he would have to kind of drag one leg. He had to pull the one hand up here. And he would drag me up here. He didn't drag me, but that's what it looked like. And then he'd sit right here, and I'd kneel down in front of him. He'd pray for me. And he had the stroke thing going, so it was hard to understand him in general. But tears would just be pouring out of this guy as he's praying over me. I have no clue what he said, but I guarantee you it was a powerful prayer, and the Lord was listening to his prayer, and that guy did not stop. I have his sleeping bag and his mat that he used to haul on mission trips. He gave it to me years ago and said, "You'll make better use of this than I will." And I still have those two things, and that's my keepsake for him. And I got a lot of heroes of the faith that I've met over the years. Some of them are still alive, even the old guy over here, and and some of them are even younger than me, that are just, despite all the obstacles in their lives, they are pressing on. In Philippians 3:12-14, Paul said, "Not that I have already obtained it or have already become perfect." Now remember, I said Paul wrote this letter in his next to last imprisonment. So he'd already been through all kinds of things. He'd grown in the Lord. We're reading all the stuff that he wrote over all these years. And he says, "But I haven't obtained it. I'm not perfect. But I press on so that I may lay hold of that which also I was laid hold of by Christ Jesus." So he's still pressing on. And then he says in verse 13, "Brethren, I do not regard myself as having laid hold of it yet. But one thing I do," there's the one thing, and we all should be doing the same thing, "forgetting what lies behind." Okay, so I used to read that verse, and I said, oh yeah, he just forgot about all the persecuting of the Christians and his non-Christian walk and the way he used to live his life. But Paul doesn't say that here. He says that he's forgetting everything from behind. And he remembers it because he talks about it, right? He says, forgetting what lies behind, he's reaching forward to what lies ahead. So there's two things I believe that Paul is not letting keep him from serving the Lord. The first thing would be that bad past, when he used to chase Christians and jail them, responsible for Stephen's murder and all that kind of stuff, right? So he's not going to let his past sinful life, he's not going to listen to Satan say, yeah, Paul, you remember when? You're not worthy. Now, the reality is Paul was not worthy. None of us are to serve the Lord. God's the one who's chosen us. God's the one that's sanctifying us. God's the one who is continually processing our life when we let him to move forward in faith and serve him, right? But I also believe, which Paul said in this same passage here, he's not resting on his laurels either, right? I mean, look at Paul's life. He's in prison again. And he could say, you know what? That's it. Shipwrecked, stoned, viper on my arm, on and on and on and on and on. I've done enough good in this world for the Lord. So now, retirement is not in the Bible, just in case you were wondering, and as far as it goes in serving the Lord, again, our stations change in life. But I don't know that anyone in here would have blamed Paul if he would have just said in this verse, and I've done all I could do, and I'm just going to move on. I'm going to move to Florida, buy a trailer, live in Bay Indies Park, and hopefully no hurricane, 50 years, no hurricane back there, over 100 actually, since there's been a hurricane down in that area, which was before the trailer parks. But anyways, so he's forgetting all that, not letting it affect his, I press on, verse 14, toward the goal for the prize of the upward call in Christ Jesus. And anybody who calls himself a believer has that upward call. And we have to daily, sometimes for me, again, you can ask Mary Jo, it can be a moment-by-moment thing with me. Like I said, the thing that my buddy said on Facebook today, that it's not that I'm not going to sin, but that time between sin and repentance, and I thought about that, and I've actually said something along those lines a few times. That's exactly right. That time is shrinking, and it should continue to shrink the closer I get to the Lord, because I want to live my life worthy of the gospel of Christ. If I don't, then who cares? Sin. Go whatever you want to do. But that's not what we're called to as Christians. So all that stuff should just simply be changing. It should cause us, when we think about all that the Lord did for us, we should be thankful, we should worship him, and we should be doing those things that we need to do in order to honor and glorify him. As I become more like him, the natural result is that others will see him in me. There's a verse in Matthew 5:13-16. We are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its taste, it's worthless. You're the light, but if nobody takes a light and shoves it underneath the blanket, most of us lost power here. I mean, were you running around with a flashlight with dead batteries? It didn't work, right? You turn the flashlight on, you get the light, and then you don't shove it underneath the bed and then walk out in the dark on the outside. No, that light needs to shine. We're supposed to be doing that. In 1 Peter 3, we're told to always be prepared to share the reason why others see the hope, and that's Jesus in our lives. Paul tells us in 2 Timothy to be ready in season, out of season, to preach the word. Jesus is coming back soon. It could be tomorrow, but it might not be tomorrow. But regardless of when he comes back, our days are numbered, every one of us. And so are those people in your family that don't know the Lord, the people you go to school with that don't know the Lord, the people you work with that don't know the Lord, the people at the grocery store. I'm going to Home Depot now down in Venice, and I try to always go to the pro checkout because they're basically the same people working there. And over time, I want to develop a relationship with them, and I want to try to do that. Now, I'm going to move on at some point, but I want to try to be intentional in making relationships with people so that I can draw them to Christ. Did you know that over 100 people died from Ian in the United States? And when they got up that morning, they did not know that was going to happen to them. And it happens all around us. We need to ask ourselves, do we have an urgency for souls? Do we really love others, or is it just something that we say or that we sing? That expression where the rubber meets the road. I don't know where it came from. I just know, okay, we're supposed to do something, right? And that's walking out that door that you're now in your mission field. Does it still say it out here? I'm sure that it does. That's your mission field, wherever you are. For me, right now, it's down in Venice. Today, it's right here. I got these 6 guys, I think it is 5, 6, 7 guys with us. One of them's leaving tomorrow. And so I'm going to be intentional into pouring into their lives while they're here so that they can go back and pour out their lives with the Lord to others, right? Amen?